Welcome, patrons! I just finished rereading the novel Last Light and it got me thinking about Griffons again, so that's what I want to talk about today. The history. We aren't sure of where exactly the Griffons originated from. Some sources say the Hunterhorn Mountains, while others say Saharan. It's possible that both could be true, or that there were just two large pockets of Griffons in both those areas. We aren't really sure. But at the very least, we do know that there were some Griffons in the Hunterhorn Mountains in the Anderfels, and legends say that the Orth, a tribe native to the Anderfels, were the first to be able to tame the beast into mounts. It would be recruits from the Orth tribe that first taught the Wardens how to fly on the Griffons and create the legendary partnership that carries long after the extinction of the beasts. The partnership of the Wardens and the Griffons would become one of their most defining traits, with stories of their bravery against the Darkspawn on top of winged beasts lasting for generations. At one point, the Wardens would try to join a Griffon into the Order, much like they have done with the Mabari, but it would prove absolutely disastrous. The Griffon became crazed, trying to kill everything it saw, and eventually tore itself apart. From that, the Order decided that it would never try again. At least, that is, until the Fourth Blight. In 519 Exalted, a Griffon named Shrike saved its master from a Darkspawn attack. To do so, it had to bite into the creature, and so tainted itself. Isia, sister to Garahel, the hero of the Fourth Blight and brand new Blood Mage, wanted to save Shrike from his fate. While she knew that joining the Griffons was disastrous to both the Griffon and everyone around it, she believed that using blood magic to manipulate its mind would help the Griffon live. So, alone, she joined the Griffon and worked her blood magic. She went into the mind of the beast, forcing it to accept the corruption within itself as just a small sickness, a cold, something to not worry about. And it worked. Shrike accepted the joining, but not without consequences. The Griffon became angrier, lashing out at all but his rider. The other Griffons had to be kept away from him as well, as they would try to fight him. Once on the battlefield, he was hard to control. He had a small cough, one that bothered his nose so much it caused him to sneeze blood. But he was also stronger, faster, even able to sense attacks from the Darkspawn and prevent them. He was able to take down 3 ogres alone, but he could not be stopped. He fought to his death, and the death of his rider, against all orders to stop. During the Fourth Blight, Isia would be ordered to repeat the process on more and more Griffons to help stop the Blight. And while the joined Griffons were largely responsible for defeating the Archdemon and ending the Blight, it came with a high price. Months after the Blight had ended, it was noticed that the joining was spreading amongst the Griffons. Somehow, Griffons who had not taken the joining were now corrupted. They were stronger, angrier, and had that persistent cough. Even a Griffon who had not seen battle in the Blight and was sheltered from other Griffons for years had been infected somehow. And this new disease would kill the Griffon eventually, if not from the corruption, then from the Griffon getting into fights. Isia was never sure what caused this. Was it the blood magic that twisted the joining process into being contagious? Was it something that had to do with how the Griffons interacted with the Blight? Perhaps it was because the Griffons were sneezing blood everywhere. We really don't know the exact cause. Either way, Isia could sense her magic in each of the corrupted Griffons. She knew that everything had stemmed from her joining process. Isia, who had loved Griffons more than most people in her life, felt incredibly guilty. Eventually, the best answer she could come up with was to take 13 Griffon eggs, all from the same parents, and hide them away. Because these Griffons were so young, she was able to take out the corruption in them and take it into herself. She hid them away in the Anderfels, surrounded in magic that kept them bound in time and safe, so that someone would find the clues she had placed in Weishaupt, the Warden headquarters, and save the species. Not long after this, Isia would go on to her calling. The Griffons would go extinct after this, wiped out by this strange disease. Reports of any Griffons, even wild ones, would completely vanish in the Storm Age, about 180 years after the joining process was created. There would be some reports of Griffons in the wild here and there, but all investigations on the matter would be proven false. Until 942 Dragon, when a young Grey Warden recruit named Valia would find Isia's journal and the location of the eggs. Along with a few others, she would find and save all 13 eggs, which have hatched. At this point, we don't really know the fates of these eggs. Our best clue is if the Inquisitor romances Blackwall but gives him to the Wardens. In Trespasser during the end credit slide, it is said that the Inquisitor received a package containing Blackwall's badge and a white griffin feather. It should be noted that the Griffons are hatchlings as of 942 Dragon. Trespasser takes place in 944. But the ending slides also mention that this package happens several years after the ending of Trespasser. So while we are unsure if the Griffons have reached into their adulthood as of 944, with the time frame given in the ending slides, they definitely have. Either way, in some small capacity, the Griffons are back in Thedas. The Beasts. Pretty much all we know about the Griffons comes from the novel Last Flight, which gives a few details but still misses some things, but here's the best we can do. We don't know too much about the life cycle of a Griffon. From the novel, we see a Griffon courting another by sharing a meal, and later the female will have 13 eggs. It's not noted that this was an abnormal amount of eggs for a Griffon to have, so we can assume that this is about a normal amount. Hatchlings are small and can fit in your hands and seem to be covered in downy feathers and fur. And eventually this will grow into both fur and actual feathers. Most Griffons come in shades of gray, white, and black, but other colors are possible, but rare. Black Griffons are described to shine iridescent in the sun. Crookytail, Garahell's famous Griffon and the father of the eggs that we have, was unique in that it was a brindled brown color with white. All the Griffons I've so far have been described as a golden color. The hatchlings that are around now are described as such. Finally, a downy head emerged from the first shell. Its damp fuzz was white in places, striped gray in others. The flat nubs of its ears lay close against its skull, and its wings were absurd brindled stubs. Valia couldn't tell which parts of the chick's indistinct fuzz would turn to fur and which would become feathers, but she knew who she was looking at. "It's Crookytail," she murmured. "That is Garahell's Crookytail." The others were hatching too. One by one they emerged hungry and awkward from their eggs, shaking off bits of shell and sticky membrane. They came out in the colors of smoke and charcoal, some light as morning mist, one a pure, unbroken black. 13 Griffons in shades of gray, each of them distinct, all impossibly fragile and perfect. When full grown, Griffons are about 12 feet from beak to tail, with the wingspan even larger. Males grow to be about 1,000 pounds, and females just a bit less. They are strong creatures, enough to break bones and armor with their beaks and claws. They also have distinct personalities and are quite intelligent. They can be trained to listen to commands and often share a bond with their rider and a few other people. If a Griffon's rider has died, a Griffon will often mourn the loss. Griffons are said to be proud creatures and like to be groomed and taken care of, which is said to be their part in the deal with the Wardens. The Wardens get flight and warriors from the Griffons, and they get to be taken care of. Males tend to be territorial and will often mark the sides of buildings they are roosting in or under trees. And we do not know how long the lifespan of a Griffon is, but at the very least we know it's to be longer than a decade. The future. Now, I know a lot of people are questioning how one can save the Griffons, as all we have is a group of 13 young Griffons, all of which are full siblings. The writer of The Last Flight, Leanne Merciel, noted that she based this off of what happened with the Norwegian Lundhound. From what I can gather from Wikipedia, after World War II, an outbreak of a disease killed many of the dogs in Norway, and sparing only 6, 5 of which are from the same mother. With controlled breeding, they were able to bring back the population, and as of 2010, there's an estimated 1,400 dogs in the breed around the world. Now, I think an important thing to note here is that of the 6, 1 was completely unrelated, and the 5 siblings only shared a mother. Some had different fathers. While limited, there is a variety in that gene pool. From our Griffons, all 13 came from the same parents. Now, I don't think BioWare would take away the promise of Griffons now that they have put it into motion, but I also think that were this in reality, there would be a lot of problems trying to bring back the Griffon population. It could still be possible that magic might help, but seeing as how magic was part of the Griffon's demise, I can see how some would try to avoid using it, even if the magic used in the downfall was blood magic. And that, dear patrons, is all that we have on the Griffons. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory? Feel free to tweet me at @KillerThon on Twitter or send a PM to user Gillanon on Reddit. De rest, you're all.